time.
Okay. Well, let's fast forward a bit to the Billy Graham ministries now.
Okay.
From the early days. Now I remember some of those.
Yes, in 1982, Billy Graham was invited to the Bahamas to receive the Templeton Award.
Yes.
And it was then that after he spoke and he received the award, we started the not only the radio ministry but the television ministry.
Yes.
And it was very, very successful in those days because you didn't have cable back in those days, and people were very interested in listening to Billy Graham, and we used to have all kinds of calls, people trusting the Lord. But in later years, I'd say up as recent as we stopped the TV and radio ministry, about 5,
No, I
7.
think it's in 2008 it came to a close.
Okay, 2008. All right. We stopped the actual TV and radio because because of the cable, people were able to get the same messages months in advance. So it didn't make much sense. But we still bring in their materials, and we still do seminars, training people to witness.
Yes.
So the ministry itself is still going on, but we don't have the radio or the TV ministries anymore. But we still have books available. We bring them in, and I do training people, those who are interested in counseling.
Well, I remember in the early days when the ministry was held at Donnie Morris Lumber Company.
Yes.
Because there were so many phones there.
Yes.
And of course, you did some intensive training.
Yes.
Training the
Yes.
workers
Yes.
how to use the telephone, how to answer, praying properly, and
Yes.
just dealing with people in general. And
Yes.
to expect any type of call.
Calls, that's right.
Suicides,
Yes, right.
marital problems.
Yeah.
And you have been an extremely busy person over those years.
Thank you.
And Sister Helen, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about the AIDS ministry that you're involved in.
Okay, I got involved with the HIV and AIDS ministry shortly after the first case was found here in the Bahamas.
Right.
I got training. The Roman Catholic Church offered a training classes at Emmaus, and I got involved in that. And then I also attended training at COB. They offered a course. And I've been involved with it from then until now.
Right.
And over the years, I've seen a number of persons die. But recently, with the drugs that we have, once there's adherence to the drugs, persons can basically live a very, very healthy life. It's like a chronic sickness now, like being a diabetic and, you know, on hypertension.
Yes.
And once you watch your diet and adhere to your medication, you live basically a healthy life. And so this is how some of the persons who I know back from the 80s are still alive today. We know their children, and now we're knowing their grandchildren.
Wonderful.
Yeah, we're seeing second generation of these same children whose maybe a mother's alive. Then, on the other hand, we have where children have lost both parents.
Yes.
Okay.
Both parents have died because of HIV and AIDS. They've been infected, and they're basically raised by grandmothers and whatnot. So we have seen quite a bit. And in the early days when we started helping persons, there was such a stigma that, you know,
Yes.
people just turned their backs on them, and they didn't even feel welcome in their churches. So my husband really journeyed with them, and he was their pastor. And when they died, he buried them when they were in hospital. He visited them on Corey Newbold ward or Sealy ward. So they had a pastor in him, and I'm really grateful for that.
That's excellent.
I remember back at the beginning, there was hardly a Saturday that I wasn't doing a funeral. and as a result, we got to know the family of these individuals. And again, as a result of that, I ended up burying a number of the family members because I was there for them in the time of their need, and they wanted me to do their funerals, even though they didn't have AIDS.
I'm going to fast forward a bit to what you're doing now in the church. Both of you are involved in, perhaps you can tell us what you're doing now and the ministry that you're mostly involved in now.
Well, now I'm in the Christian Counseling Center as Director of Counseling Services, and I've been there from the inception. And that is a very challenging job because you have people coming with issues.
Every type of life issue.
They have marital issues. They have interpersonal issues, issues on their job site, HIV/AIDS too, and then behavioral issues with children. And at the present, we don't even have a counselor who deals with the children and such, because Deborah was dealing with that, and she's now off in school.
And who's Deborah?
Deborah is our daughter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's amazing that
so she's pursuing her doctorate, and so we sort of have that void.
Yes.
And it's a very busy life. Very busy life.
And so you've really given us, in Deborah, you've given us another gem, because she's been to one or several times to minister to the kids, and she's amazing, just phenomenal. And of course, your son Frederick and Matthew, both of them. Well, all your children went through the Awana programs.
Yes.
And I had all of them in Awana, and they've all excelled. They all really excelled. And Pastor Arnett, now I remember also you were involved in the membership classes.
Yes, I used to teach the membership class totally after Pastor Russell left, retired or resigned from Calvary. As a matter of fact, I'll go back to 1982 when 1985 when I came on as assistant to the pastor here at Calvary Bible Church. The pastor was called Pastor Russell, and those who were in charge at that time, it would have been the board, was asking me for about 3 years to come on board, and finally I listened to the Holy Spirit and I came on board. And when I came on as assistant to the pastor, but before the week was over, I remember Pastor Russell and myself walking over to the building that now occupies Christian Counseling Center, that had been up for sale for over 3 years prior to that, and the building was bought, and as a result, his exact words to me, well, the thing is, we wanted to knock that down and turn it into a parking lot. But when we look at the building itself and saw how sound the structure was, I remembered Pastor Russell saying to me, Frederick, you are into counseling. He says, why don't we turn this into a Christian counseling center? And in those days, of course, that was we had the epidemic of the cocaine.
Yes.
And that's where we started, working with men and women who were users of cocaine. And as I fast forward now, 2 years after that, I recognized that the parent of these children seemed to have needed more counseling than the drug addicts. And it was then that we decided to start working with the family. And that's how we got to where we are at now. And then, of course, Pastor Russell resigned, and for 2 years, I saw to the day-to-day running of Calvary Bible Church. We had special speakers like Dr. Early, who was my teacher at the Baptist Bible Institute. People like Brother Jazel Thompson, Dansby Hudson, they really came alongside, and especially Brother Jazel, I could remember I would be able to call him at any time, and he would give me direction. As we moved forward, for 2 years we were without a senior pastor.
Yes.
But some very significant things happened during those 2 years.
Great.
First of all, up to the time Pastor Russell left, we had a board of directors and association members. They were the two groups that sorted the day-to-day running of the church. But we got a committee together, and then instead of a board, we changed them to deacons. And we had no elders back then, and we made provision for elders. And we changed the Constitution, because the Constitution had to be changed in order to do that. Plus, we had no membership. There was no such thing as membership. People came to Calvary Bible Church, they liked it, but they had no say in the day-to-day operation of the church. And we also brought about membership. So 3 significant things happened during those 3 years. And I remember as I sat with Pastor Lee for the first time, inviting him to think about coming on as senior pastor. And I told him what we had done. His words to me was, you know, it must be the Lord, because if those things were not in place, I would not have even considered coming on board. Wow. So again, I see the Lord using us during that period, and within 2 years we changed the Constitution, and we brought about all that change where we give rights to the membership to nominate deacons. And if they have the right, if they know anything about any of the elders, and they can make an official complaint. Of course, they would have to sign their names, but they can make official complaints to the Board of Elders. So that really stand out for me as well as my time or tenure here with Calvary Bible Church. I think that was one of those areas that stood out to me, that I felt the Lord did something to me personally in my growth spiritually.
So what's your official title in the church?
When Pastor Lee came on, he changed my title from assistant to the pastor to associate pastor.
Okay.
And of course, I am the executive director of our Christian Counseling Center.
Heavy hats. Lots of responsibility. Are you involved in the mini church at all?
I used to be, but again, I've learned to say no, and I realized that because of the amount of involvement with the